The USHL keeps going from strength to strength, and the Blue Jackets could find another gem at 36th overall in the Chicago Steel's Michael Hage. We're going to talk all about him on today's Locked on Blue Jackets.
You're Locked on Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to mention that we are free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube, as well as on SiriusXM. And I also have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more, because right now new customers are going to get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Here is where we would normally do a Monsters Monday, but we're not doing a Monsters Monday today. I think that'll be a job for tomorrow. We'll talk about the Monsters season finishing. We'll talk about the series against Hershey. We'll talk about all of that good stuff. Today we got another prospect profile. Sam McGilligan is back. We're talking all about Michael Hage, who is a really fun player out of the USHL and who could be available for the Blue Jackets at 36th and could be a really good pickup for them in that range. So I'm just going to get right into my conversation with Sam about Hage. The Blue Jackets, as of right now, still have their second round pick. I don't think the guy that we're going to talk about today is going to be there, but I want to talk about him anyway because he seems like a lot of fun. We've got Sam McGilligan back, and we're talking about Michael Hage today, or Michael Hage, but no one is quite sure. But we're going to go with Hage for this episode, and if I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me. I know you will anyway. Let's kick it off. Sam, what kind of player is Michael Hage?
A super cerebral center, just a smart player. Like, he's not out there trying to reinvent the wheel or overhandle through traffic or do that, like anything like that. Like, he is a dependable two-way center with good skating, not fantastic, but good skating, who moves really well, who's always in the right spot, really well positioned, just makes great decisions when he gets the puck. He's got a good shot, good skill level. He does have creativity in his game. He just knows he doesn't need to bust it out unless it's, he's under pressure or he has to come up with something to get out of a situation. For the most part, though, you have a super easy to project to the NHL player.
He's currently sitting at around kind of 36th in Bob McKenzie's rankings, which, as we all know, are probably the most accurate, if not the most correct. Which is a whole thing that we don't have to get into here. Is he a guy that you would feel comfortable taking in that kind of area?
Absolutely.
He went in the first round in our Locked On mock draft. I don't remember where. I'm pulling that up. He went 26th.
I was going to say, I think I looked at that. He was a late first.
Yeah, he went 26th to Locked On Canadians.
Pretty sure that's a couple spots. I have him at either 25, 26, 24 maybe, but that's the exact range that I have him to. He's just such an easy player to project it. That's in a draft like this, you're trying to find guys who will play roles at an above average rate. Like, a good middle six player is a huge win right now. And if you're picking with a late first, as Columbus is theoretically, and if not a second round pick, which would be just gravy, that's a huge win, because it's really hard to see Michael Hage not playing. Hage kind of reminds me a bit of almost like Owen Beck going in the second round of the 2022 NHL draft, where it's a very easy to project player who will definitely be playing quality third line minutes at the least, but there's offensive upside to boot with him. There's enough tools where you can kind of see them manage most situations in the NHL. The intelligence is the driving factor that brings everybody kind of around. They're the center that connects plays for their wingers. They're the centers that connects plays for the defensemen. They're the center that can drop low and grind it out in the defensive zone and really make big efforts to redirect play the other way. He can help out in transition as both the receiver of a pass and also distribute out and just straight up carry it through. But he doesn't take crazy risks in doing this. It's all super smart positional hockey for the most part, and just recognizing what his options are at any given moment.
Obviously, he had a pretty decent season with the Steel this year, which I feel like I don't remember if it was you I talked to the last time I had you on the show about how the USHL has suddenly become this like
It's
actually quite good development.
It's a very
that has
good
really
league.
kind of taken over the QMJHL in a lot of ways. But the Chicago Steel, it's a pretty decent organization to play for. He's going to be committed to the University of Michigan starting in the 2025 season, which makes me feel a million years old. But we know the Blue Jackets love to draft players from Michigan. Is this a guy that you could see the Blue Jackets picking up and just kind of? The Blue Jackets draft MO is usually they pick a guy with raw skill and then figure the rest out.
I think for when the Blue Jackets will be on the board, there will be a more skilled player. In fact, you can look at a guy in the USHL as well who plays for McGilligan and Sasha Beauvais. Sasha Beauvais has more skill. He's still a little clunky at times, but for the most part, he's a more fluid player. He's got higher end moments of being able to solve like high end problems by blending his reach and his skill and his mobility and just kind of like doing some pretty crazy attacks that you don't see Hage do as much. But Beauvais also turns the puck over a lot in these attempts and also misses obvious plays sometimes, and his defensive game is a bit inconsistent. His positional game isn't as secure. But there's more to work with there to create like a higher end player. Like I could see Sasha Beauvais turning into a second line center, but I don't think he's currently on that path until a team and him get on the same page. Columbus being the Blue Jackets MO, I think Beauvais is the type of player that they might go after, especially if you're looking in the USHL. But that doesn't mean that they wouldn't take Michael Hage, because Michael Hage does have a lot of skill to work with himself. He just uses it in a way that's more practical. So maybe if they're looking at building a state, like they just see him as a, you know what, put him in the middle six and he can play in the top six if guys get hurt. He's got every tool that you need to gel with other NHL players, and he's going to stay and keep pace with them the entire time. And there's very little risk, which doesn't usually get found in the top of the second round. I feel like even Columbus might take Hage over Beauvais. Just depends on whether they want to break away from their MO, as you said, of drafting these skill guys and kind of letting them figure it out, or whether they kind of just want to go for a little bit more safety.
But first, I want to tell you all about Policygenius. Life insurance gives you peace of mind, especially when so much of what happens in life is unpredictable. A good life insurance plan gives your family a financial safety net to protect against some of the unknowns. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 a year for $1 million of coverage. Some options are even 100% online, and they let you avoid unnecessary medical exams, which is choice. Policygenius is convenient, it's time-saving. They help you compare your options from America's top insurers in just a few clicks, and their award-winning agents can walk you through the process step by step. Policygenius has no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. They have thousands of five-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. So get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quote and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. Hage obviously has, I assume, is going to return to the Steel next season. And then obviously we'll be going to Michigan in 25-26, like I just said. What kind of development path do you see for a guy like Hage? Is it, okay, one more year at the USHL and then a year in college, and then when he's old enough, make the jump to, I guess the CHL agreement isn't in place here, but is he a guy that you think could play in the AHL after like 1 year of college? Is he a slightly longer kind of project? Like where?
See, it's interesting because Michael Hage spent the majority of his D-1 really hurt, like got very little ice time. And when he was playing again, he was clearly rehabbing the injury still, or like just getting back into form at the very least. So it was, I think he was 9 games last year. They were okay-ish. And then it was a bit of a slow start this year where he was fine. He wasn't obviously a bad player, but he was if you were following this age group a couple of years ago, he was one of the highest end players that this group had to offer. He was at one point like a top 10 2006 from all of North America. And then the injuries came and he kind of slipped down. The way his game has progressed this year to make up for that, to make up all that lost ground that all these other players got at him, they were able to play in the USHL for a year. but Hage comes in pretty much his inaugural USHL season this year, whereas a lot of those guys and his contemporaries have already had another season. He caught up to all of them, outplayed almost every single one of them, and by the end of it, looked at his best moments, looked as good as any of theirs, except for maybe John Mustard. That guy's insane.
Great name as well.
I know. What a name. With Hage, I feel like because he lost so much time, there's a couple different paths you could go with this. You could leave him in the USHL for you, which is what's going to be happening. If he's anything short of the best player in that league by its noteworthy margin, unless there's another player from this draft who'll be staying a year, I would be shocked. He kind of is already approaching like one of the best player territory, or he is without question one of the best players. Then it's another year of just like, okay, how much better is he than everybody else? What can he kind of start to do? You really might see him expand and open up his offensive game, which is what people expected of him a few years back. If that's the case, he goes to Michigan. He might get top 6 minutes right away when he steps in there, especially because he is a bit older. And then from there, it's pretty much, I think he'll be able to keep pace with the AHL mentally when he's got an NCAA season under his belt, unless he runs into some turbulence there that we weren't expecting. But for the most part, I think he'll be fine with it. The problem is mostly just strength and conditioning and speed and those types of like, is he physically ready? Which we won't know because that's kind of 2 years out. Like it's the season with Chicago, at least one season with Michigan. What's he look like in 2 years? There's a very good chance that, that there is a lot of strength added to his game. There is a lot of speed added to his game. And if that's the case, who knows? He could be ready for the AHL, and then it's just one season there, one season to the NHL. I imagine most teams see him as like a 3 to 4 years away type of player, and maybe just one incremental step up, like take over the USHL, go be a key player for Michigan, maybe do it 2 years in a row, and then either go to the AHL or jump straight to the NHL.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what the team that drafts him looks like as well, because he's going to play probably sooner on a worse team.
Yeah.
He's probably not going to get time with Colorado or Tampa or Florida, etc. He gets drafted this season. Obviously going to go back to the Steel for you, or maybe a different USHL team. We don't know. I'm assuming the Steel. What is like the number one thing that he needs to work on in his game?
Well, what's interesting with Hage is so many people that are going to be drafted around him are going to be like, hey, you have to cut this out of your game. You need to stop doing this as much. You need to do this, but way more of it. With Hage, it's more so just get more athletic in every possible way. Like, not obviously natural athleticism, but get stronger and get faster. Like, these are the key things. Like, if he has a separation ability on players through just his first 2 steps alone, or his first 2 strides, that will make a tremendous amount of impact in his game everywhere. Because he already does these little details that other players that he's playing up against don't really do it. He manages to get inside positioning on guys all the time. He manages to just kind of lurk through defensive gaps away from the puck and step into shooting lanes with great anticipation. Sometimes players just aren't even seeing him on his team because they're not expecting him to be there. I found that the more I watched Hage off puck, the more I started to appreciate plays that were there that he seemed to be ready for that didn't come his way. And then when they do go his way, you see how quick he handles them and how quick he processes and moves the puck onto the next player. It's like, okay, he's very locked into the game. He's very around moments of impact. How often is he getting the chance to actually show how good he can be? It's a bit limited by the team that he plays for at times, because Chicago's a good organization, but they weren't the best team. So it's this weird combination where it's like you almost want to see him be more assertive and take games over, but it might take away from what's already kind of his best strength, which is the cerebral play that he comes with, the sophistication, the steadiness and the positioning and the smart decision-making. I almost don't want to encourage him to work away from that, but any impact moment to bust out some skill or just get stronger and get under guys better and like use that inside positioning to push off players and really get the space in the pocket. Those are kind of things that you want to see get added to his game. But for the most part, you don't really have to change much.
Yeah. I'm going to finish up my conversation with Sam in just a minute, but first I've got to tell you all about FanDuel. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, the NHL Final, and even more. You can bet it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers are going to get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $200 that you can use on everything from the final MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. My advice is just find the heaviest favorite you can, whether that's the Panthers winning, whether that's the Celtics winning, anything you can find with the best odds. Put $5 on it, and if you win, you're going to get $200 that you can use on literally anything you want. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. Once again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I feel like most of that as well is just like get reps in the gym.
Yeah, like that's what so much of it is.
He's, according to Elite Prospects, he's 6'1" and 190 pounds. So he probably has some weight to put on.
Yep, a little bit.
He's also just turned 18 like 2 months ago. So
yeah, he's a strong player already. Like you can see what he can do in the NHL against players in the USHL now. I think if he was to go to Michigan next year, he'd find himself in some moments where the guys he's going up against are just more athletic. But by the time he gets there, he might just be physically ready to handle everybody, which is crazy because, again, the injury that he suffered was significant in his draft -1. Like, it was the type where, from what I understand, I wasn't overly familiar with at the time, but others were, they were questioning what it could do to his career path. Like, does this already limit his ceiling in the NHL?
Oh,
it was one of those types of serious injuries. So to see how he's come along already and how strong he is and how well he's been skating since, it's really just about how fit he can be relative to everyone he's playing against. It's just the way that can unlock his game, and little moments that he can just strive in would be fantastic.
If people want to learn a little bit more about Hage, if they want to learn a little bit more about Sasha Bovair, who you mentioned a little bit earlier, where can people find you and your work online?
You can find me at Sam_McGilligan on Twitter and sammcgilligan.substack.com, where I'll be writing about Michael Hage and Sasha Bovair and everybody else coming out the week of the draft, the Monday of. And you could also find our work regarding Michael Hage and Sasha Bovair dating back years, especially Michael Hage. You can find the full story with him on Puck Preps.
And probably some Gavin Brindley information.
And Gavin Brindley information, of course.
I almost got you to talk about Gavin Brindley a little bit, but I feel like I did that last time I had you on the show. We can't do it every time, otherwise it cheapens it, I feel like. Next time we will definitely get into some Gavin Brindley talk.
Absolutely, we will.
And that's all I've got for today. Like I said at the top, tomorrow we're going to talk about the Monsters. We're going to talk about what went wrong. We're going to talk about their season as a whole. Was it a success, even though they didn't make it to the final? All of that good stuff. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, making us your first listen of the day. Locked on Blue Jackets continues to be free and available on all podcast platforms, over on YouTube and on SiriusXM. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.